Yeah. So okay, so we have seen something on that day, like how exactly you can add the details, right? So when we run this app, let's call the get all data from our load itself, which is on create. Let's call the all data to, so that when we run the app, we'll see all the details, whatever are there in this, right? So let us first check. So I hope you guys are following what we are actually doing, right? So on that day, what we have seen is we have seen one functionality, which is inserting data into SQL Lite, right? So while inserting, what we did, we actually inserted few student names into SQL Lite. So as soon as we insert some data, we created a separate function called get all data, right? So this get all data will actually get all the details, which is like, with respect of any condition. We'll see today the condition part, like for corresponding or for one student ID or for particular student ID, if you want to get name, how to get that and all, we'll see today. Anyway, so this get all data will actually get all the details or all the student names which are present in our database, right, which is SQL database, and we have actually shown like on Toast what exactly was happening and all, right? So for now, let us comment on Toast, because we have already seen that whatever we are adding are have been added up in this, fine. And then what we are going to do here is, let's say if there is no data, which is if data lstr data dot. So in get all students, what we are doing here, we are actually mapping, reading the database, selecting the things, and we are adding it to the array list, right? So we are actually instantiating this. So let's say if the size of this is 0, then just make a toast here. Just say no data exists, and duration, let's make all the things as short dot show, and then return, so that we don't need to actually populate anything to the senior aspect. Okay? So that is a catch here. So now what we do is, whenever we run this application, right, whenever we run this APK, so whenever our screen first loads, you can see now. So initially when we actually the screen banned, right, there was no data being populated, right? Okay, there was phone call. Okay, I was ready with this. No issues. These are old app of previous batch. Okay, now you can see by default it will actually add. So whatever you added, Apple true, right? It will also take something called duplicate, right? It's just a name, and accordingly all the IDs will be fed automatically. So if you give any other name, just take an example of something, add it up, right? Added successfully, and if you can see, it will be added to the last index 65. So in this way, all the details will be added up in the SQL Lite. Now let's move ahead with one more functionality or one more DL operation called how to get a specific data. Like, let us say if I'm giving specific data like ID, right? How to get the data of that specific ID, right?
Srinath?
Yes, Sandeep?
You said that like the ID is automatic generated ID, right?
Yeah.
If I want to give the ID explicitly and I want to give the ID.
If you want to give the ID, then you have to change your SQL, table sector, right? You should not give it as a primary, right? Because if you allow user to give ID, then you can also give duplicate, right? Then you can't mention it as primary key, right?
Okay, like if I want to give, I shouldn't give it primary. Is it like that?
Exactly, right? We never know, right? So how many records are there? Let's say there are already 100 records. If we try to add a user with 99 ID, right? Then it will not allow us to add, right?
Okay. It depends on like okay, I want to start the ID from some 1000, not from 1.
Okay, then you have to give the startup, column ID. The startup by default will be whenever you're creating a column, right? There will be something called startup column, startup value, unique startup value. If you want to start with 1,000, you can also start with that. Same DML operations can be
Yeah,
applied.
same like the ML.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what about the joins and advanced SQL? Do we use the
Yes, yes.
advanced SQL in this?
Yeah, you can also do that part. See, we did something on select, right? You can actually apply in DB handler, right? Wherever you did select star from so and so, right? You can actually write the complete joins and everything here. Everything works here, right? So if you want to get the data based on joins and everything, like if you are using join and everything, which means you're trying to get some raw data from database, right? Then yes,
Yes.
in this case, you can actually use the joins and everything. Where you have to run this query using your raw query, so that you can get something on cursor and you can actually read the data. Yes, you can do that. But
So if you want to delete some row from the database, then
I'll
also
show you.
you
I'll
have
show you.
to
Yes, I'll show you.
write the code here itself.
Yes, you have to write the code. Everything. I'll show you how to update, how to delete, and how to get specific. Right? We'll see that those things. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And the main reason why I took this ID field is like whenever I want to get specific thing, right? Then I'll be using this text box actually. Sorry, any text, right? That's why I've taken this one. Right. So let's go back here and let me get one more button. So let me call it as, so let me just say this is the button. So let me call it as specific or get, let me call it as get, right? Let me call it as DTM get detail, one detail. But with respect to the ID, we want to get the details actually, right? So let's go to SQL class activity. So this is our first button. Now let us create one more for get. So let's create a button. This is our LDTN get detail is equal to, you have find d by id, you have r dot id dot dtn, what is that? Okay, we haven't saved it. Save it up. Then we'll get it as a get detail. Okay. Now typecast it to button. Now once we are done with that, now let's create the clear new on click listener here. And in this click listener, we are going to call the DB handler now again, right? So then if you remember when we were about to add something, right? So we just took the data, which is whatever we needed, right? We needed something called text new, right? We got that and we actually called a DB handler. So where in DB handler we got something called insert student, which where it actually demanded a name, that's it, right? And we sent that and it got added. In the same way, when we want to get something, right? So we need an ID, right? So let's take an edit text here. Let me call it as lobj from txt is equal to find v by id. You have r dot id dot edit text id. Right? So we are more interested in ID. So whatever ID we enter, we want to get the details for that. Okay. Now here, so let me take a string. Let's call it as here ID is equal to lobj3xt dot, we have something called get text dot toString. Right? So this is ID part we have. Now, so once we are ready with ID, then the thing is that we'll be calling a method in DB handler and we'll have to pass this ID. Now, first let's move to the DB handler here. So let's create a method to get the specific details. We have created a method called insert, we have created a method called get all data, right? Anyway, so these things are something which is a constructor. We have override of create and override of upgrade. Now let's go ahead and create one more functionality in this, which is getting specific data. Right? How can we get a specific data into this? Now let me use public string because we're going to get one data here. Or if you feel that for specific ID or specific where condition which you are going to pass, if you have multiple, then you can actually make it as array list, right? Make use of that. Now let me make it as get specific student, right? Something, and just make it as string and ASTR ID. Let's say we are going to send an ID set. Now here I am going to show you a different way of DML operation which we can do here. So if there is an exception, let's return blah, blah. And finally, let's say I'm going to take string here, lstr name, and I'm going to return that name. Yeah. Fine. Now here initially what we have to do is, as we have done in all, right, we have to get a specific SQL Lite database instance here, right? So let's open that. Let me call SQL Lite database. Let me call it as DB is equal to null initially. So I'm gonna create instance here, which is DB is equal to now. You can see here we want to read the data, right? So which means we have to open the connection to a database as a read-only mode. So you can use a direct method called get readable database. So this method is our activities. You can see here this is something which is our Android API database SQL Lite API, which is our get readable database, because we have already extended our SQL Lite open helper. Fine. Now with this we will actually get the connection over SQL Lite database, which is very read-only. Now here again we are looking for something to get data from a table, and it can be single row or it can be multiple rows, right? Or it can be a single cell. Doesn't matter about that. So we have to get something where we can actually move to one record to another. So in that case, always we have to use something called cursor, as we have used for our getting all details, right? Which we have something called cursor. So let me define this cursor even as a global to method, so that we can close this cursor. Is equal to null. Now this cursor, let me create it from, we have to create a query now, right? So here query will be in this way. So previously what we did is we created a separate query and we actually ran it as a raw query. If you remember, we actually took a DB instance and we used raw query. You can also do that part. You can just select star from so and so, where, everything. But let me show you something which Android or SQL Lite Open Helper provides for us. You can actually do a direct query method here. You can see that there is a direct query, right? And you can select any of the selections you want based on the order you want to queue. Let me select this one. So the first argument is table. So we already have a table name, and here columns. So what are the columns actually need, right, to get the details, right? So here this columns you can see is nothing but you have to mention the string array of columns, which means there can be many columns, right? If you want to get one column, you again have to mention string array, or if you want 10 columns, again you have to mention it in string array format itself, right? So let me create a new string array directly. If I can create string here, I can just say string. I can just say string array, right? So where I'm gonna give some values here. So whatever column we have, which is we have a column name called db. What is that? Constant called student ID, comma we have constant student called student name. So these are our columns which we have, and then we have something called selection. Now you can see here when we actually move ahead with this, selection is something Now, what is the selection criteria? So this will give you what is actually the criteria we want to apply on the corresponding table to retrieve all these columns. So the selection will be, I want to have specific ID which is mentioned from my app, and I want to get the name for that corresponding ID. So which means you have to mention your selection here, which is const ID student ID, right, plus is equal to, you have to mention something called question mark. So this is a begin, which means this will actually take it as a condition. Now, where should I give these question marks, which means the value for this question mark. So that you have to give as a selection argument. Again, this selection argument is something you can see here. Selection argument, when you go to the list, right, selection argument is again a string array. Whatever selection arguments you want, you have to give it in a array format. Right, so let me give new string array, and let's say here what I need to give is, I have to give the ID of my the ID which I am retrieving from my app, right. So let me convert the ID to specific one, because we have sent it as a string, right, but here we have created ID as an integer, right. So for that we will be converting our string to the value of the ID, which is an ALT ID. So this will actually give the actual parameter will load into this part. And then group by, you have group by whatever the column you have, you can give. So let us say I don't want any group by now. Having the same having class which we have, right, you can apply here. Let us say I don't want any. Let's say order by of what column you want, right, you can just send it. Right. So in this way you can also apply your things here. So let's say student ID, okay, we gave some final modifier, right, that's fine, cannot be assigned. Do that once, let's see what happens here. Okay, that's fine, it should be non-final, right. So once you run this query, so this query will run on this table. Yeah, it is true that you don't have to remember them. So this query, that's why I always go to this definition. So this will actually guide you how you can actually go ahead. Now here, each and everything you have a specific collection here, having how you can actually plan having, and how you can actually plan order by row, right. Now this will actually give you the query where we are going to run for a specific ID we are going to provide. Now this will actually execute internally and will actually give us a cursor directly. Fine. Now let us check if my cursor, which is not equal to null, right, then I'll have to move cursor to the first record, which is, we have already seen something called move to first, right. So this move to first is nothing but it will actually give us a first row of selection. Now once you are in first row, right, it means we'll be getting ID and the name in one row, right. So let's continue with string. Just say LSTR name, or let's say, okay, LSTR name is equal to, so how to read that, again you have to take cursor and dot string. So as we have in our result set or row set in our Java, right, here we have something called cursor, where you can actually get the string, and here you have to go to column index. Let's say name is at first index, and you have ID, let's say LSTR ID is equal to, you have cursor dot get string of 0 dot to string. Right, this will give you the ID. Now once you are done with that, just collaborate these things. Okay, let's say I want to return LSTR data, not the only name, I'll return both name and ID. Right, now here let me just say LSTR data is equal to, so I have LSTR ID plus, let's say semicolon, plus LSTR name. This will actually give us the combination of ID and name selected And once we are done with this, now let's go back to our main activity. Now we have ID here, so let's create DB handler. So here, which is our CLS DB handler. Let me call it as LOBJ DB is equal to new DB handler of the current context, which is application context here. Right. So once it is done, let me call string lstr data is equal to, you have a handler dot get specific student of ID, this side. Right. Now this will be as an actual student name. Now keep all this code in try catch. It may happen that you may get error, then you will have to handle the error. So in this catch, let's say we're going to handle something called toast here, dot make text of application context and e dot get message, and duration will be the toast dot short dot show. Right, so here is your data. Let's show this data whatever we are retrieving. So let me create a toast here dot make text application context and just say you can just say lstr data, and you have a toast dot long dot show. This is what we are going to show here. Right. So for specific ID we are going to mention, right, we are going to get the data, right, from our DB handler. Because this is the only class which we have. Now you can see that we are actually keeping all DML operations, everything in our DB handler class only. Right? Don't scatter anything in this. Right? Always try to keep. So this is a neat way of actually doing your programming in Android, right? So this you can actually follow even in your web applications if you are doing. Like when you put all the classes of business logics at one place, views at one place, and all the controllers at one place. As we do in our stuff. Fine. So once it is done, then it will actually run us. It will give us data, and we are showing that in our screen. So let me run this. So let's go ahead and see what actually happens here. Okay, so we have these many details. Let me give 3 here. So let's say 3 and click on get. Right. Okay, we didn't get anything. Let's see what is the problem here. So we got it 3 here, text ID. So let us print toast not make text not show. So go to get specific ID, and you have your table name here, you have your columns, which is student ID, and your this one here. Okay, perfect. So if there is any error, let's pass on that error. So on student ID we are going to get something which is our query string here, right? And then the arguments we are going to give in I think seems perfect. So we have your get string. Okay, you don't have to do again to string. It will actually convert to, that's fine. It doesn't make much difference. we have a name and ID. We are going to plug name and ID, and we are returning ID here. Okay, so once you are done with this, let's close the cursor, which is finally we have to close the database, which is if db. One second. Yeah. Not equal to null. If it is not equal to null, then just say db dot close, and if you have cursor, right? So cursor you have to close first. So just check on if your cursor is not equal to null, then close the cursor, as we are done with our cursor, right? But anyway, so this is something which is not a big thing we have done here, because it will actually work directly. Now let me run this project again. Let me give some 1 and click on get. Selected ID is 1 and syntax is near question mark. Okay, what is the error we gave here? So we have student ID plus okay, this is equal to, we have to give here, right? Because we have to get whether it is equal to, or we have something called, you can give like and all, right? So we have to give is equal to. My mistake, sorry guys. So let me run this again. And we'll do one thing. So this part, when we are actually getting some error, right? So let us keep it long instead of short, so that we can actually read everything. So normally whenever you get any issue, right, always try to log it, which is we have to log it in our log.d, right, where give it as error at get specific, and just say message as key.getMessage. Okay, this will actually log up in your logcat. Now what do we need logcat is, now let us say tomorrow if anyone is here you can see it will actually give this one, but this is something which is provided by Android, right? Now if you have developed something, and if your tester want you to reproduce the error, right, then you can actually ask him this log, right? So for that, if you want to get a clear log, then you will have to log everything here, right? Now let us run this again. So I have long here, perfect. Okay, so here let me make it as 2. Click on get, selected ID is 2, and we'll get 3. Right? So that is how we can actually get the details. Now you can see we have the details of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's give 5 here. Get, we'll get the selected ID 5 and the detail 5. Just give a thing which is not there. Click on get. Now selected is equal to 2, and we'll just say okay, index requested with size, which is data is not there, right? So we have to handle that part, that data is not there. Simple. So here we are trying to get something, right, which is not there, right? So we can handle that part here. If there is no cursor, then just say there is no data itself, and you can actually return back to your, this is something which you can handle up by yourself. Fine. So this is how we can actually get the data, specific data related to our IDs. Right. So this is something where we can actually get the data. Now let us see the next DML operation, which is something called update. Right. So let's go ahead with something update here. Now in this DB handler, so let me write one more method for updating some data. Right. Let me create a public string, or let me take a string here so that we can show what exactly been updated, and make it as update data. We are using insert student, right? We can use insert update student, right? And we are going to update name of a student. Just mention ASTR name, right? And now let me try catch this one. So here, let's say I'm going to return the error, get message, right? Now update student here. Now we'll see how we can actually update student directly using our as we use something on specific student, right? We also have something called direct update into table, right? We'll see how to do that. So before doing that, we have to get an instance of SQL Lite database. SQL Lite database, make it as db is equal to null. Now this time we don't need cursor, right? Because we are doing an update operation here, so we don't need the cursor. Now first what we have to do is we have to get the db first. Now here we are going to update the db, which means we have to get the data. We have to get the connection of database, which is writable database connection. Call something called get writable database here. So once it is done, now we have to do as we have done in a previous way, right? Which is for inserting data, we have used something called content values. If you remember, there is something called content values, right? So these content values will actually give us a column and a specific value of that cell to update, right? So let me call it as v is equal to, let me call it as new content values. So this will act as a hash map for column name and cell. Let me call it v dot put of string key. So the key is nothing but student name. We want to change the student name to value is our new name, which is ASTR name we're getting. So let me call it as new name so that we can actually have a good understanding here. Now once you're done with your content values,
this is the one we use for inserting also, right?
I'm sorry, Sandhya?
For inserting the values also we will do the same thing. We take the content values and
yeah, same thing, yes. I mean, if you want to give the bunch of, so why I'm actually showing this part is like tomorrow maybe you may be updating so many other values, right? So you can use the content values directly. Yeah?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to give two things, then
what two things? You can actually go with output one more. Put one more column.
Yeah. By giving the column name separate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So you have db dot, you have a direct method called update, right? Now you have to give update, first is table name, and here you can see content values, right? You can directly give values here, right? And here is something where you have to give where class, right? And you have your argument, same as we have seen something called specific student. Now this where clause will be something called my student ID, right? And here itself we have to complete the where class. So student ID plus I have to add my is equal to question mark, because I'm giving the straightforward value of ID. And then variable arguments, where args are something which is string array. Again, let's create new string array of, let's say whatever the ID we are actually going to pass here, right? So let's say we are giving only name. Let us also give something called ID, right? String. Yes, obviously we need an ID, right? ASTR ID, right? Which ID you want to update that name. So here let me call string dot value of your ID, right? So instead of hard coding the ID, I'm just taking something which we are going to pass from our app itself, right? Now once you're done with this, now you can see how it actually works. It will update this table based on the values you're passing. This value will be mapped on this where condition, and this where condition is mapped based on equal to question mark. This question mark will actually give what is the value, and this value will be loaded by your string, right? And then you can just return something, and you can return now here we have to return a specific data, right? Now you can see we have to return a name here. I can use a direct specific data string. Return then something called get specific student of ID. I can give the same ID here. This will return okay whether the data is being updated or not, right? So that is what we are going to call here, which is update, right? So let's create an update button here. So let them move a bit aside. Right. So let's go back here and just say it as update, and let's call it as btn update, right? Which is our update method. Now let's go to the activity here. So we are done with our get specific details and getting or inserting the data. Now let's write up separate method here for updating. So let us take a button. Let me call it as lbtn update is equal to find view by id, we have r dot id dot, we have something called btn update, right? Now let me typecast it, and then let us take it as btn update dot set on click listener of new on click listener here. Now in this on click we are going to call the, now here we have to do two things. On during update we have to get both the values of text boxes, right? So let's do that part, which is our, let's say txt id. We have something called ltxt id. Find the id, you have r dot id dot something called edit text id. The same way we have name is equal to find with id of ir dot id dot, we have edit text name, right? So these are the two things we have because we are going to pass these two, right? Now we have the id which we want to pass, and we have the name which we have to update. Now we have to create a CLSDB handlers object. And pass on the application context. This will actually give us a context to the DB handler. Now once it is done, then let's call update method dot update student. Now here we have to give the new name, so which will be your let's take two variables again here, string lstr new name is equal to, you have ltxt name dot get text dot toString. Then let's take up this next for id. Okay. So this will give us a new name and id. Now let us pass the same thing, which is new name and the LSTR ID. This will actually update the value, and you can see this will actually give us a string return. So let us handle that return here. Let me call it as LSTR return. Right now, if you are getting the same value which you are passing, guys, then it will be successful. So let's take a toast here, dot make text application context, and just say updated successfully, and the duration will be a toast dot long dot should. Okay. And then if you want to show the data updated successfully, colon, just show LSTR return, because we are going to get the data which we are going to update. Now this is how we can actually write code to update the database. So let us run this part and see what happens here. Okay, so it just went out. Okay, that's fine. So here we have something called details. We have apple tree, tree, right? There is 3, 3 and 4 trees. So let's say we want to update 4th one with some other name. Let's say, let me take it as 4th and just take it as some name which is John, right? Click on update. Now you can see update successfully and 4th one got updated to John. Now if you look at this, it will be still tree, because after updating you have to call the get all details, right? Let me call that get all data, because all data is going to get the details, right? Fine, let me run this again. So when I run this again, right, so initially you can see here it was 4 was 3, right? But when it runs again now, so whenever the app loads, right, it is going to load all the latest details which is updated in your local SQL Lite database, right? So that we are going to check now, and we'll update it again, and we see the immediate effect being affected on our spinner, right? So now you can see here, yeah, it 4th one John, Sri got updated to John, right? Now let's replace again this John with some other. So let's say I'm going to give 4 here, and let's say here let's take server for the name then, and click on update. You can see update successfully 4 then, and if you open this, now you can see here it will get updated with that. We are doing 2 different operations, 3 different operations rather. One is updating, second one is getting specific data, third one is getting all the details, right? It is much faster as it is a local SQL Lite we have, right? So that is how we can actually update the details we have. Fine. Now let's look into the next one, which is the last one, which is deleting the data, right? Let us see how we can actually delete the data. So let's go back here. So let me, this was update. Let me call it as btn update, this one here, right? So let's go ahead and let me drag and drop one more button here. So let me drag a small button rather to the bottom. So let me call it as delete btn delete. Right. So here we are going to delete a record based on the ID we have mentioned, right? Based on the ID, we'll actually wash out all the details we have, right? Now let's go ahead and see how we can actually handle that button part. Now, so let's fix up first. Let's go ahead in our DB handler and write the data code for deleting something, right? So deleting something is, again, we can use the same pattern as we have used for db.update. Same pattern. There won't be any difference. So let us see how we can actually do that part. So here this is getting updated data, right? Update data, right? So let's go ahead and write one more method for delete data. Okay, so let me take a public. So here again, let me just take up or let me take a boolean here, right? Because we are going to check delete, right? Let's say delete student, and let me get the ID of student. I have try catch. Now if you have any error, just return your e.get message, and so you have to return false, right? Because if it is not updated, it is false. Now here let's return true, basically, because we are going to write a delete DML operation here. Now here, so in our update we forgot one thing, guys. I don't know whether you have noticed. Every time you open anything, you have to close that. Otherwise, there will be a problem of multiple cursors. Right? I hope you know the multiple cursors issue if you have actually worked in real time. If you open up multiple traffics to database, right, and if you don't close for much time, right, then it will actually struck up the data and it will create a traffic, which is also called as a cursor issue, right? So for that, instead of getting out of that, always try to close the database connection, which is clear. Anyways, if you close your app or if you restart your phone, all these things will be reset, but don't take chance. Now here first what we are going to do here is, let's say we are going to take SQL Lite database. So db is equal to null, and then first close it up. If your db is not equal to null, then we have db.close. Very important, and always do it in the finally block. Okay. Now let us write the DML operation here. So we will be taking db dot, we have direct string called delete, direct internal method called delete. Again you have to give table name. So that is why I actually asked you to actually always make your table as a global variable, right? So that you can directly use your variables here. And where class, again you have to mention what is the where class you want to apply on. I want to apply where class on student ID with something called is equal to question mark. What? And arguments will be my string array, which is new string array of, now here we have to pass on the value of the ASTR ID. So this will actually give us a delete statement for this particular student ID which we are getting from here. Right? So that is how we can actually delete a direct value from database, direct record from database. Let's check this out. Clean up and let's run this. So are we calling from here? No, we have to call from our app, right? So let's create a button. Let me call it as lbtn delete. So is equal to, we have find v by id r dot of id dot btn delete. Right click, let me type cast it to, oh sorry, so lbtn delete dot set on click listener. We have new on click listener here. So and then here we're going to write the code. Try catch. Now here we need an ID, right? So let's take ID text here, which is txt ID is equal to find v by id of r dot id dot we have edit text ID, and then take up a string is equal to ltxt id dot get text dot toString. So this will actually give us a ID. Now once it is done, then let's take up a db handler object. Let me call it as lobgdb is equal to new db handler of application context, and then okay, we have to typecast this text view, and then just call db handler dot something called delete student, right? And we have to give the ID. Just pass out this ID, and this will give us a boolean status, let's say, right? And once the status is true, then we're going to show deleted successfully or failed to delete. Now let me just handle this boolean status. Just create a toast here, make text application context, just say deleted successfully, then we have toast dot found dot show. Okay, this will actually give us this, and else part just say that you can fail to delete. Okay. So this will actually give us a fail to delete option in our scope, right? And if there is any error, let's make one more toast here. Just say make text of application context, and we have something called e.getMessage, right? If there is any issue, it will show up, and just say toast dot we have long dot show, right? So this will actually give us a toast for this, right? This will actually delete the data from the database we have. Let's run this and we'll see what happens here. So here you can see, right, that you have all this. Let's say we want to delete 3, which is 3. Select on that, click on delete. Fail to delete. Perfect. Why? So we got it false here. So let's say we have a table name, we have a student ID is equal to question mark, everything is fine, and then we are actually passing some parameters for this, which is ID here. This will actually give the ID to student ID, and it is deleting something. Should work. And guess, can you guess what exactly went wrong here? Can anyone see this? What is wrong? What is that I'm doing wrong here? Anyone? Right?
Opening database.
Sorry?
I think we should open database, right?
Perfect. Actually, I haven't instantiated the database, right? So as we are going to delete, which means I have to open a connection to database first, right? So until unless I do that, I can't actually open that. So that's why we got it false here, and that's why it will just fail. Let me rebuild the project and open it again. So let's give some 3 here and click on delete. Now you can see delete successfully, right? Now if you go back and see here, okay, so we haven't called that 3, right? Okay, so we haven't got that called something called get all, right? We'll call get all data, so that it will refresh our data here, right? So let's run this again. So now whenever I run this again, right, now it will be deleted, right? Because this time, so it was 3 here, right? Now whenever it runs again, it will actually open up my app again and it will try to get the data while loading the app itself, right? So at that moment it will actually get the latest data, which we actually deleted 3. Now pertaining to that ID, everything will be deleted normally. Now you can see here that if you go back, you can see the 3 got deleted, right? So now delete 1 here, click on 1, delete, you can see it successfully, and click on this. Now you can see there are only 3, right? Click on 5 again, delete, you can see there will be only 2 and 4. Now let us say if you add something, let me add ID here, let me add something as add successfully, click on this. Now you can see it will it will take the latest or highest ID and it will actually add. It won't replace the missing ones. 1 is missing and 3 is missing, right? No, it won't do that. If you click on add again, right, which is click on add again, it will add, and the data which will be added again is the latest, right? So let me delete the 5 again. So delete 5, let's say I'm going to delete 6 too, delete here, right? So when it gets refreshed, so we have something called 2 and 4, right? Let's delete even 4 here. You can see there will be 2. Let's delete 2, right? And if you can see here, there will be no data. No data exists, right? There will be no data here. So let me start okay, let me delete it again. Okay, as there is no data, right? Now can you see why it is happening, guys? It says no data exists and I'm getting 1 data. Why? Now why I'm getting 1 data here is, so if you can see get all data, right? If there is no data at all, right, what I'm doing, I'm just returning this. So whatever data was there in Spinner, it actually stays as it is, right? So that is the reason why we have 1 data here. So in that case, what you can do here is, let's say you are going to get the Spinner data here, right? So you can just say something like dot get adapter dot something called you can just say something called dot set adapter as null. Let's say I'm gonna set it as null, right, which means I'm actually removing the adapter. Let's run this and see what happens. So before running this, let's say I'm going to add 1. Click on add here. Now it will add 1. Now you can see it will actually refresh with completely new, which is 1 tree. Now let me run this. Sorry, any question there? Okay. So it is installing the APK file. Okay, now we have 1 data, right, which is 3. Now let us take 1 here and click on delete. It will actually delete the data. Okay, so it got crashed because Now this is the time where we have to check our log here. Now you can see here, I think this is because we have set something called null to our spinner, right? Spinner, we have null pointer exception, fatal exception, right? So what we'll do here is, we'll do something like, let us say there is no data here, that's fine, right? If it is size 0, even that is fine. What we'll do, we'll just say there is no data, right? And we'll set the same. So let me clean this up and run this again. So when I run it, so initially it will not display anything, I hope. Now it will be, let it load. Fine, initially there won't be any data, you can see there won't be any data here. So what we'll do, we'll just add a few details here. Let me just say Sri add, right? Now you can see it'll add one, which is one. Now let me add some others, add here some other. Now it'll actually give up two things, right? So now let's delete these things, which is click on. Now see here, every time you are actually adding or doing anything, right? Let's say you want to clear this, we should actually do that part, right? So let us handle that part. So I hope you can actually handle that. So whenever you click on add, right? So the button click is here, add button, right? So when, let's say whenever you're clicking on once it is successfully added, now you have to delete that. So delete that with set text dot set name, set text as empty, right? So this will actually delete your data from your text. Now let's say I'm gonna run this. Yeah, so here you have two things. So let's add some more. Let me add then add here. So this will be cleared, and you can see it will be added, right? Now let us delete all now. So let's say 3 here, delete. So you can see 3 will be deleted. You have 1 and 2. Let's delete 1, delete, and also let's delete 2, delete. Right, now you can see delete successfully, and it says no data exists, and you can see that the spinner will go empty. Right? So this is how you can actually do all the DML operations on SQL Lite basically. Now this is a simple pattern which you can use, and now you can, based on your requirement, right, you can actually goes on with different things. You can try different operations you want in your app actually. Right? So this is all about your storages side, how we actually get into storages and all. Right? Now this is about the complete storage part we have in our Android. Now we have one type of storage called external storage, I hope, right? So we have seen internal storage, we have seen shared preferences, we have seen SQL Lite, which are very important in our Android. Now we'll be checking out external storage. So we'll see external storage in next class. So in today's class, we'll just see something called telephony API, basically. So which are simple but yes effective, as we can see, right? Let me show you some telephony API. So when I say telephony API, so which is let me go to the course sheet. So I'm talking about telephony API of this part, where you have making phone call and sending SMS and sending email. We'll just see one or two today, and we'll actually see most of the thing. Email again is something which sometimes, right? Sometimes you say give us a feedback or something. You can actually give that by sending an email, right? Normally, we'll see this part. So we'll see these two, which are simple today. Fine. So let me create a new project. We will see external storage part in next class because it needs some time, right? So let me create next, and let's say I'm gonna take telephony. Now this is telephony API normally, right? So let me call it as form.sr.this, next, we have next, and finish. So this is my main activity. So let me go to the main activity. So let me just create a new activity here, and let me call it as telephony activity. Click on next and click on finish. Now in the main activity on create, let's create a intent. Intent is equal to new intent of the current activity, which is main activity dot this, comma, we have your telephony activity dot class. Fine. And just say start activity of the current intent. Right? So this will actually give us a hold of the intent. Fine. So this is a starting up of the activity we have, and it will actually open up our telephony. Now we are done with this main. Now in this telephony, let's first start with something called phone call, right? So here let's take let's go to telephony here. Now first let us say I'm going to take a number model, which is this, let's say phone number text box, and then a button to just say call. Fine. Now let's go ahead and just say edit text. Let's say this is phone number, right? And this is something which is call, let us say. So this you can actually apply wherever you want in the particular location, whether we want to give the number, right? So this ID, let me call it as BTN call. So this is something which is a very simple API we have. We just have to see what exactly we are going to use here. Now here, let me create a button. So where we have something called LBTN call is equal to find v by id of r dot id, sorry, r dot id dot button call. Okay. And then let's typecast it to button. Now once it is done, just say btn dot set on click listener of new on click listener here. So let us import the view. Now here, so again, as I said initially, right? So if you want to, access any of the Android APIs, right? We will be using intent. Now here, it can be phone call or it can be anything. It can be Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, which we are going to see from now on, which will be very simple topics as such, but very aggressive topics as such, right? So because these are something which you will be giving in different situations, right? So everything will be using something called intent. Now here again, we're going to use something called intent. Let me call it as LAVJ intent is equal to. Now we will be creating intent of. Here we will be passing in our action actually, which is our intent dot. So we will be having so many actions you can see here, right? So there are for different things, right? For media mounted, we have seen media checking and all. So these media point anyways will be checking on our external storage and all. Okay? Now here we have something called action underscore something called call. Right? So this is something which will automatically loads the API of action called call from Android directly if you are using a direct intent, right? Because this intent is something which is a direct class in Android.content. If you can see, intent is something which is a direct Android API content, which means if you are accessing any action from this, which means you are actually accessing direct different API contents of your thing. So this is nothing but which we call it as a content providers, right? Now, once you are done with this, so let's say you have to get the text box, right, or edit text where you will be giving some number, let's say, right? So let's take edit text. Let me call it as LTXT phone number is equal to, we have find view by ID r dot ID, sorry, dot ID dot, so we have something called edit text phone number, right, and then typecast it to edit text. Now once it is done, let's say we are going to use it as dot get text into our phone number. We have to string. Right? So this will actually give us a phone number. Now once you get the phone number, then you have to actually, now here we have a intent. Now normally we have to start an activity so that it will actually start the phone or call activity, right? Which is call activity, start activity of this. Now before this is how we actually create an intent with this action and start activity. So whenever we say start activity, it will actually start a call activity screen. Now we have to give an input of something called phone number, right? So how we can do that is in this way. So for this intent, we have to do something called set data normally, and you have to mention the URI data, right? Let me pass URI dot, you have something called parts, and this is the format which will be following for telephone, which is telephone number as such, and then we have to give the number. The number we are actually passing through the phone number itself. So this is how we will be mentioning what exactly is the number we will be loading onto action call in order to call the particular person, right? Now that's it actually. So let me run this and show you how it works. Maybe as our emulator don't have a SIM card, right? Now maybe if you actually deploy this in your, please deploy this APK in your mobile phone and give the actual number, it will actually trigger and the call will be connected to the person, right? So let's run this and see what happens. Started this. Is it taking? Okay, fine. It is taking the same AVD. That's fine. Now you can see there is something here. So let me do something called 0091 F8008 29296. Let's say, right? We have click on call. When you click on call, you can see it will actually open up what's up here. So when I click on this button, so this button is nothing but the button call, right? BTN call. So we have taken BTN call. We have taken the phone number. Let me just create toast here. Something went wrong, it seems. It's fine. Dot make text application context and just say e dot get message and duration is toast dot show. Sorry, long dot show. Just see what exactly went wrong here and we will sort it out. No issues on that. Probably it would have gone something here. We'll check out what exactly it is. So we have URI dot parts of so and so, and we have start activity of intent. Things seems fine. That's fine. Let's see. Just give some number and call. Permission denied. Perfect, perfect. We have to do one thing here. Right. In order to access a phone API, right? So we have to give something called permission to this. Now this is good that we actually, ran this. So this permission denied, right? So every time whenever you actually install any API, right, it will ask for something called permission. If you remember that, it will be using your phone API. It will be using your Wi-Fi in that way, right? Then when you accept something, then it will say, okay, your application will be installed. Same way here, we have to give an option to call. Now way to give permission. Now the permission part, you have to go to manifest file here. In manifest file, if you remember, we were talking about something called this manifest. Now here, either this is something which will give you XML form, or here you have all the UI formats. Now let's go to permissions here. Now you can see there are no permissions as such. Click on add. Now in this we want to give user permission. Click on OK. Now in this user permission, this is the one where you have so many permissions as such you have. Now in this permission, we have to give permission to call a number, right? So we have something called number call, or phone, not phone, call phone. Okay. This call phone is something which will actually is the one which we have to get the permission for. Now you can see, if you select this one, it will add up here, and if you go back to manifest file, so this is the one which will be added, which is called as user permission and your Android call phone. Okay. Until unless this you have given this, right? So while installing, this is the line which will actually ask for permission to accept it. Unless user accepts it, right, your application or your APK will never be installed. Right? So let's run this, save it up and run this once, and we'll see whether it runs or not. So you have your 340, just give some number here, some number which is some valid or not. As of now, as I don't have SIM card attached scale, click on call. Now this call, you can see here, this call will open up call API. Now this is a dialing screen, right? Now this is a dialing screen which is in emulator actually, right? But anyways, there is nothing which can be done. It is just showing, okay, this is how it will be open. Right? Now you can actually see there will be all the controls you have. You can actually open up your keyboard, dialing anything you want, right? Get back to phone or end your phone, right? So in this way you can actually do this part if you want to join conference. So everything from this app, again go back, it will actually take you to this app. So that is how you can actually create an API access for your telephony to make a call. Very important thing is these things. One is intent you have to make for action call, and then we can mention the number in from our direct. We can actually mention anyone to give their phone numbers, or what you can do, you can directly say call us. You can in your app, right? You can just say call us to the call us. Click on, just give a button. Let's say it's a social app. For more information, call us. You can just give a button. You can hard code your number, let us say, if you want to fix it up, right? So when anyone clicks on the call, it will directly open up the call screen, and the number will be dialed automatically, right? So in that way, you can actually use or make a phone call. Fine. So that is how we use. And one more catch here is this one, which is the permissions one. So when we go to external storage, I'll show you one more type of permission again. So these permissions are something that based on different actions you want, right? You may have to give permission. So whenever you have to give any permission, this is the area where we'll be giving permissions to the, we will be taking rather, right? We will be taking permission from user to actually use this API from phone, right? Because every API which is in our smartphone, right, is a secured one, right? So that is the main reason where you have to take care of giving the permissions and all, right? So this is how we can actually use a telephony API called your calling, make a call, right? So that is something which we have for today. In our actual thing, right? Because web service is something which will actually give you how host will actually talk. The app will actually have a communication with host, right? How we can actually get different data from host and show it on your app, and how we can actually push data from app to host again, right? Because we'll have to go to that level, right? So that's why we'll just finish up this day for tomorrow to most of the things, and we'll see how it can be done. So any